Hey everyone, welcome back to the Visually Stunning Movie Podcast. I am Mark, that is Ryan. Hi Ryan.
Hello.
Opening Friday, or if you're in where I am right now, about 4.5 hours from now. An A24 film, technically.
Yes.
Comedy, drama, family. From writer-director Nicole Holofcener, whose name I probably butchered, and I apologize. With Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Tobias Menzies, Amber Tamblyn, David Cross, and it's the story of a couple. She's a writer. He's a psychologist, psychiatrist, does couples therapy kind of stuff. And it is about what happens when he tells her one thing about her latest book that she's trying to get published.
No, it's worse than that though.
Oh,
he tells a friend about how he feels about her book, and she happens to overhear.
After he has already told her what he thinks, air quotes.
Sure. Yes.
And the two do not jive.
No. One's positive and the other is very dismissive. Which, honestly, to a certain degree, that's like every writer's nightmare. When even the people who tell you that you're doing good and you've written something that it's really good and someone's gonna pick that up and whatever, and then it turns out that your biggest supporter is only your biggest supporter because they're married to you.
Right. As creatives, yes, that's a terrible fear to have. It's like, I trust you because I love you, but can I really trust you?
Well,
in this instance,
yeah. Obviously, this is overplayed a little bit and a little over dramatic. Although I do think that people who write and what for a living or want to write for a living tend to be a little sensitive, whereas I think someone who's written and I don't know, that's not true. I think everyone's sensitive.
I think all authors, everyone suffers from imposter syndrome.
Yeah, so even the successful, I suppose at a certain point there's certain writers who probably don't question their ability,
right,
to the extent that maybe is being questioned in this film, but it's her first fictional narrative as well. So that's writing fiction is radically different than nonfiction. Nonfiction dictates the plot, the story, whereas fiction requires a lot more imagination. Maybe the same talent for writing, but a lot more on the imaginative side. So anyway, yes, there's this sudden massive divide between two individuals who have been, quote unquote, happily married for who knows how. Look, it's one of those marriages where they both humor the other as much as they think they need to.
Yep.
And that's kind of the undoing, or at least the start of the raveling that happens.
Well, do you know what that's called? It's called marriage. It really is.
I don't know anything about that. So
I know. So I'm just telling you, as a guy that's been married a long time, that's just called marriage. So yes, you're supportive and positive as you feel you need to be in 99.9% of instances. But no, yeah, but so it is. So it's a bit unnerving for her, if he's lying about something, as inconsequential almost as her writing. What else is he lying about?
Yeah.
And they have an adult son who manages a pot dispensary in New York, but could do so much more. And she's a very supportive mother. So we get the same kind of phenomenon in another relationship. And that's addressed in the film, which I think is great. Yeah. Because as an audience, we're watching it, and then he turns to her and he's like, hey, wait, aren't you? And she's like, no, it's completely different. So, you can be anything you want to be. You're smarter. You're so smart. You're so talented. And it's interesting. You can expand this idea, this kind of relationship delusion, out to almost any situation that involves people, because people can delude themselves. Everything can be terrible in one direction, but completely sensical and kind and wonderful in another direction. And it's a trait that we humans have. I don't think it really exists anywhere else in the animal kingdom. But it's
yeah. In the animal kingdom, no one can say, "Well, you're really a good hunter. You really are." Oh, wait, I'm sorry, you starved to death.
right, exactly. You either are or you aren't, and there's not a lot of, in the animal kingdom, even chimps. It's like, oh, it's you've been such a good friend for so long in the troop, and you've helped, but now you're hurt. We're just going to have to leave you behind, so you die. And we're not going to, it's funny that humans are very complex creatures, and our sense of reality is dictated almost as much by what we see inside as what is actually happening outside ourselves. And that really does, I think that does kind of separate us from the lesser animals, who are only lesser in certain ways. So in that respect, it's kind of a neat film, but all the relationship stuff and all of the kind of banter we get in here, it's not new. No. It's not groundbreaking. I think the performances are solid. I think the cast is good. It's a small film. It's a little A24 character talkie film. It's not a big bombastic blockbuster kind of film. It's in theaters, and that's fine. And I know we've discussed the need for cinema over streaming. This would have been fine on a streaming service, on a, as more content on a successful service, just to give your subscriber base more options. And we don't talk about that kind of stuff very often here, but it is a thing that I'm starting to notice or think about more, because everyone, there's so many, Netflix is doing this, Disney's doing this, Amazon is doing this. So all these streaming companies are all kind of, they're kind of trying to readjust to a lot of new things now. And so content and where it goes first and where it stays is a thing. It's a strategy, it's a reality.
It's a huge thing right now. Yeah. So I don't disagree with you. I think that I wish that there are, after you sit down and write, or sometimes even during the process when you're writing, you see some headlines on the internet of other reviews for films, and I saw a few where there were people who laughed until it hurt, sort of quotes, and I just
I don't see it.
I want to be that person but it really didn't connect with me, and I don't, I'm not married. I do have, but still, I mean, those sort of relationships of trust and, sort of things are pretty universal. It doesn't necessarily have to be a husband and a wife, or a mother and a son, or, it can extend to, I mean, really, a writer and their editor, or, there's all sorts of things that it can extend to. So I don't think it's because I'm completely on the outside looking in.
Right.
But I just, I don't know. It didn't feel real to me. It felt very much like a movie. It felt very much like a clever script, but not necessarily a real script. They said clever things, they acted in clever ways. Well, that's probably not true. They acted in stupid ways a lot of the time, just to enable the plot to move forward. And not that people don't do stupid things, they do it all the time. And so Yeah, I wanted to connect more with it than I did, and I kind of it's a film that I kind of feel bad that I don't like more than I do, because I don't think it's a bad movie, and I think it clearly does have an audience that's out there. I'm just
Hmm.
not exactly sure who that is.
But hey, look, if you enjoy what you're seeing and hearing on the Visually Stunning Movie Podcast, why not take a second to click subscribe if you're on YouTube, click follow wherever you're listening to us. Follow us on Twitter at VS Movie Podcast. Same over on Facebook. If you're on Instagram, it's Visually Stunning Movie Podcast. That would be awesome for us. We appreciate you listening. And now let's get back to the show.
Um, because it's not me, and if you didn't, enjoy it more than you did, I kind of expected you to have enjoyed it more
Well,
simply.
it depends on your definition of enjoy. First off,
Yeah,
like I said, I identified with it um, as a married person and a frustrated writer,
sure.
uh, and I have a kid, and so I recognize and like I said, so it's not that I hate it's fine. Like I said, I feel like I've seen all of it before, and maybe it's
Yeah.
because I lived it. I don't know. We're not lived it per se, but maybe it's because I do see so much of it that it feels routine. I don't know if that's the right or the word I'm looking for.
I don't know.
Um,
I think to me it felt like if you sat down and said, "Let's make an indie film," um, or I don't want to say if you ask a computer to make an indie film, because it, it's even more. Writing these things is more complicated than that. Even if they don't reach everyone, but I don't. It just yeah, it felt a little flat to me.
well, so here's part of this. So Nicole Holofcener uh, has written or directed a lot of TV. Uh, she's on Lucky Hank right now. But Orange is the New Black, Inside Amy Schumer, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Parks and Rec. Um, did direct a couple of other films. Enough Said, which I believe, yep, Gandolfini and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. So she has a relationship.
Uh,
Um, but yeah, I don't like I said, it's fine, and maybe I'm too close to it to really to like it more. I don't know. Maybe there's a happy medium between you and me in terms of viewership.
yeah,
But
I
it's
don't
like I said, it's not a bad film. It's it's a very loud, quiet film
know.
because Julia Louis-Dreyfus has like one volume.
Yeah.
Um, but it is. It's a quiet film about people talking. It's from A24, and like I said, generally speaking, with the exception of a very recent film that neither of us enjoyed, of theirs that wasn't really theirs. Bo was afraid. But normally we know what we're getting with A24, so it's not gonna suck. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's at the very least it's gonna be good, and that's what
right.
this is. It's good.
Sure. Yeah. And I guess, I mean, for me, part of the thing is, there's a lot of A24 films that I'm not a huge fan of, but I'm a fan that they got made.
Right.
And this is just kind of, I don't know. It's a kind of an in between place that I'm not used to being with, an A24 film. But they weren't, they didn't. This is something that they picked up. I think Film Nation might have had it, done the actual production on it, but nevertheless, played Sundance, had I guess a okay response.
Mhm.
Muted, I think muted response would be muted positive. There we go, positive
Yeah.
but muted response at the festival.
It was on my list of things that I was going to try to see,
Yeah,
but and mostly because I identified with the synopsis. So it's like, oh, well, that sounds
familiar.
identifiable. I feel attacked. So it's so yeah, so it was on my list of films to see, and I didn't get to it. Um, like I said, but it's not bad. It's worth watching. I don't know how it's going to do at the box office.
Well, it's reviews I think will be solid for it. So the big
Yeah,
question is, are fans of the cast going to go and see it in the theater,
right.
or are they going to sit back and wait for it to end up on a streaming service?
Yeah, I mean, because it's opening. I mean, Fast X is still in the theaters. It's only going to be week 2.
Yeah.
Little Mermaid opens. Um, it's got a lane because it is neither of those two films.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And
But
again,
yeah,
it's a question of will art house, and and unfortunately I haven't been able to follow this as much as I'd like, but how are the art houses doing post pandemic? Because I think that more than anything, they were, poised to crumble. And I
right.
don't, it's kind of a terrifying thing to think that we might not have art house films in theaters, because there are quite a few that absolutely deserve and should be seen in theaters. But yeah, you get this and you look at the names and you think, okay, um, it just doesn't. Yeah, I mean, I get why it's in theaters, but it just doesn't feel like it needed to be.
Yeah, and like I said, it goes back to the whole where do things belong. Like I said, because I don't hate streaming, but but the argument has always been certain films have to be seen in theaters.
Yeah.
They're made. This isn't one that has to be seen in a theater. So will it be seen in theaters is the interesting question for the weekend, or does it just get completely drowned out by the two big films?
Yeah.
So Fast X and Little Mermaid. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Like I said, it's not bad.
No.
It's
No. It's far from bad. It's just a film that I regretfully was never really connected to. It just that happens. I'm not going to connect with everything, and um, sometimes a film is so good that you don't necessarily need to connect in the way that you might with other films. And I think this film, it just required something of me that I was unable to give.
Yep. Yep. That's the only way to put it. So, like I said, it's if you're in the mood for something that's not a blockbuster or a kids movie, this if you're a fan of this style of film, then yeah, and you want to go to the theater. That's the big thing, because you might not want to go to the theater. It is a holiday weekend. That's the other thing. Smaller films I don't think necessarily do better on a holiday weekend. I think that's for things releases like week 2 of Fast 10 and the opening of The Little Mermaid. That's where they tend to suck the oxygen out of the theater. And the smaller films may not,
Sure.
because people are traveling, they're doing other things, and they know the smaller film.
Well, and it's family time. But the irony is that I think I would argue that between well, yes, I would argue that between Fast X, Little Mermaid, and this might be the best of the lot as far as the film actually goes.
That there's yes, in a Martin Scorsese cinema sense, yes, you are in fact correct.
Which so I mean, so take that for what it's
Yeah,
for its worth. I mean, that's the state that we find ourselves in. So.
yes. So yes, it'll be interesting. I'll be interested to see the numbers come Tuesday, and see where it falls amongst everything else. There's a weird thing going on in theaters right now, and there's more movies coming. I think it's going to be a busy month in terms of box office numbers. It's going to be interesting.
Well,
week to week.
Yes, absolutely.
Because there are films coming out. We get a horror movie next week. We get the Boogeyman. We get Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Volume 1. And that's next week. And then the week after that, we've there's it's ridiculous what we have. coming, but then at the end of the month we get Indiana Jones, but then we've got Mission Impossible coming. So there's going to be a stretch of 5, 6, 7 weeks where the box office is going to be really strange week to week. Except at certain points where you're going to guess that like Mission Impossible is going to win that
You would
week,
hope.
far and away. You just know it's going to destroy everyone else that week. But then it's like, well, where does the bleed over go?
But I think the interesting thing about that film is, does the success of Top Gun carry over?
I don't think it hurts. I don't think it needed it, but I think that's actually going to help. I think that's a really good point. And then let's not forget, end of July, we get a big budget blockbuster art house film in Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
So from Christopher Nolan. So yeah, it's going to be a very strange month and a half. In terms of watching, I mean, watching box office is what happens now, because that drives things going forward. So like I said, it will be interesting to see how this one falls this week up against The Little Mermaid and Fast 10. But then to see, those arcane stats like per screen average, because you don't know how wide it'll open,
Sure.
How it holds up the second week. It's going to be interesting, and we'll see. I don't even know what the budget was on this, truth be told. Are you going to tell me what the budget was? Probably not, because you're evil like that. No, they're not going to tell me that, because I want to know, so they're not going to tell me. Yeah, so it'll be interesting. It's not very much. It doesn't have to make a ton. The question is, can it, in this kind of viewing environment that we find ourselves? So, but yeah, so that's You Hurt My Feelings. A good film in an interesting yet weird spot in terms of release. Like I said, I think the performances are fine. I think it's good. I don't think it's great. And it might have been. I don't really know that you could elevate this much more without making it just super dramatic and over the top. And then I think you lose whatever appeal you might have had with this. So I think this might be the best version of this film, which I guess is, again, back to fine.
Yeah.
It's back to fine. So yeah, so A24, and you're right, I think Film Nation had it first. I think A24 swooped in there at the end. Julia Louis-Dreyfus. So yeah, if you're a fan and you don't want to see Fast 10 or Little Mermaid, but you want to get out for the holiday weekend for a couple hours, it's only like 90 minutes or something. It's not really that long. So dinner and a movie, knock yourselves out. I said we've got other stuff to talk about for next week. Like I said, we've got the Boogeyman. We're going to have Spider-Man to talk about, which we love the first one, so for a second one should be good. We get more Spider-Man, but it does more equal better. We shall see if there's a diminishing returns on the number of animated Spider-Man that you can cram into a movie. That's it for this week. That's You Hurt My Feelings. Check it out. Don't forget to like us, follow us on social media. You know how all that works. But until next time, I'm Mark. That is Ryan. Bye, Ryan.
See you guys.
And we will talk to you all later.